Hey, what's going on, everybody? Andrew here, back for our build review show. It is Friday, March 28th of 2025, and on this show, I bring users builds up live on stream, giving them personalized feedback and advice about things I think that they can do differently in their builds to help improve their results, help improve their post-contest sim ROIs, and ultimately just help them to build and submit stronger lineups into their contests. So we do this show once a week. We do the show on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you ever want to get signed up for a show, two ways to do that. Number one, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Two, post in the office hours channel in Discord. Let me know the following things. Let me know the date, the sport, the site and slate you want reviewed. And when you send me that info, I will be able to add you to the list for the next show. So for today, we do have two people up. We have one NBA review and then our first MLB review of the season. So that'll be super fun. So why don't we jump right in here? I'm going to get SaberSim pulled up. And first person up is going to be Joey. We're going to be looking at the NBA main slate from yesterday. So as always, we are going to start on the contest tab and just look at some contest selection. So contest selection seems good. Listening to our recommendations, taking a couple shots at some of the bigger contests, totally fine here. So don't mind this at all. This seems good. From here, why don't we review the, they did ask me about like specifically analyzing the zone. I usually opt for the contests with the most entries in it, but it's fine. We can look at the zone, no problem. Okay, we have Joey here. So the way I would always do this, right, is if you enter less than the max, do greater than or equal to whatever number you entered, sort by sim ROI. So what do we see here? So we see that highest sim ROI is somewhere above like 25%, I'd say. And Joey's at 5%. Okay, so that's not terrible. There is some room for improvement, which is good. What do we see here? So we see average salary of 50,000, no dupes. We see a sim average score of like 256. This looks just like slightly low. And it's kind of funny because like the top person does have like a 256 as well, but you know, I always kind of like judge these and say like, okay, what is like the average and like, are there any outliers? So like 256 seems like a little bit of an outlier here because we see like 264, 259, 257, 260, 258, 265, 261. So like for me to be like comfortable here, right? I would probably say that if you had like a 259, maybe like 250, I'd probably say like 259 to like 264 is like kind of the range you want to be in, right? You don't need to have the highest sim average score set, but there is kind of a floor that we see where lineups start to like drop off, and you might see some lower sets sneak in here, but those always seem a little bit more the exception rather than the rule. So we want our sim average score to be slightly a bit higher here, which we could talk about ways to do that in the post build. Now, I don't think we're going to learn too much else here. One thing that caught my attention here, I was looking at these builds, right? So I don't know if this is the case or not, but this timestamp tells me they built their lineups at about 4 hours prior to lock. The fact that this was run 4 hours prior to lock, or it says that, is slightly confusing me because I'm like, okay, is this just like the timestamp for the initial lineups, or is this the timestamp for their last lineups? But no matter what, regardless of what the answer to that question is, the point is that you should try to rebuild your lineups close to the first game's starting. So ideally, you would do your final build when all of the teams that start at slate lock, which was 4 p.m. here, which was 3 games, when all these 3 games have check marks, that means that lineups are confirmed, final sims have run for these games, and you should feel comfortable building your lineup. So in that case, like, wait for these check marks, refresh the projections. you can stay in the same build. I don't know if you were in the same build or not, but then rebuild your lineups, right? Click that rebuild lineups button to generate your final set of lineups. So always do that. If you're not doing that, that will honestly greatly, vastly improve the strength of your lineups, because NBA news comes out all day long and projections are adjusting, markets are moving, things like that. So, you're going to get the latest, having the latest and greatest projections for NBA is super, super important. Other sports like NBA, like MLB now, lineups come out hours in advance, and you can do that ahead of time without, really expecting much change. I think MLB lineups come out like 3 hours prior to lock. So I would actually never wait till like 10 to 15 minutes for MLB. I would say do your lineups an hour ahead, do your lineups 30 minutes ahead. Like, don't ever get in a spot where like you are rushing against the clock with MLB lineups. I know it's like a little bit of a tangent, but super relevant, since the sport just started. All right. Big J said, no, that's correct. I do an initial lineup. Then within an hour before the game, I do another build. If there are updates to projections, I just get one in just in case I don't get the time. And then that's my lunchtime at work. So that's when I have the time to do that. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Awesome. I just wanted to make sure that was happening. But if possible, if you could like do it, within the last like 30 minutes, within the last like 15, great. If you can't, I understand. But just some things to be aware of. And honestly, kind of on that point, right? Like, let's say like, you're not going to be able to like check this. I would like really consider checking out some of the other slates. Check out the 5 p.m. turbo, check out the 6 p.m. night slate, maybe check out some showdowns. You know what I mean? Like, not being able to get your lineups, like the latest and greatest sims, like can really hurt you. Right. And obviously I don't want you to like lose that edge or like lose over time because of that. You're still going to get like a good sweat in with like the night slate. And, ideally, like, I mean, depending on what time you get off work, like, you might have more time. Right. So keep that in mind when deciding what to play, when to play. And, we were talking on office hours earlier, like there's so many sports going on right now, so if like, hey, you got to skip NBA today, maybe I'll just play, MLB, or, maybe I'll mess around with like trucks or something like that, right, tonight, because it's like a little bit later. Consider that, right? So you don't want to put yourself at a disadvantage is basically the point I'm trying to make. All right, cool. All right, let's jump into this build and see what we see. All right. So default min and max salary, no filters, no rules, couple projection adjustments. I'm assuming like, see, Luka's kind of like a good example here, I think, where like maybe the projection was like 57.09, and then they adjusted it to like 57.08, just like super small projection adjustment. But then projections update throughout the day, whatever, right? And then all of a sudden, like their projection ends up being like 2.5 points difference. Like it actually has like kind of a big impact, right? So just another example of that thing. I would probably, when you do your final set, talking about that, reset those projections that you adjusted from the morning and then re-update them. That way the impact is like less and it doesn't like grow over the course of the day, right? So I'd mentioned I do that. Outside of that, no min or max exposures. Checking the positions. Yeah, no min or max exposures. No adjustments to team stacks, game stacks, or stack exposures. So that all looks good. Let's look at some other stuff here on the lineup side. So using direct fill, using average ROI, 6 min uniques. So I don't know when these updated or what with like the contest sims, but what I would probably do, just like I I think that this filter is useful just as like a just in case type of thing. Set up a filter that says show lineups with ROI greater than 0. Okay. This will just help you to avoid negative ROI lineups and should just make everything look a little bit better. So I would just do that. It'll just save you just in case you go too far or something like that. And it's like a nice to have type of thing that I think is useful. So I would do that. I'm sure your uniques are like probably fine at 6. You need 7 lineups out of 5,000. You could probably get to a little bit higher number here. The one other thing I want you to be aware of here, right, is that you're using direct fill. Okay, at least from what I can tell, it looks like you're using direct fill and not auto. When you use direct fill, and notice that there are a couple contests. Yeah, you have 3 contests, and it looks like you have 2 of them checked at a time. So maybe like you did like the 2, and then you did the single entry separate. Remember that the ROI between these 2 contests is being averaged. So every lineup, so like take this top lineup, right? It says average of selected contest is 521. And then we go and we look down here, right? In the and one, it was 526. And in the zone, it was 515. So these are kind of close, right? Let's see if we can find like a big disparity. 422, 434, 439. Okay, so it seems like these 2 contests kind of play similarly. Maybe you did that on purpose, but I guess like what I just cautioning, right? Cautionary tale is like you see how like the single entry, the lineup has like a 64% ROI, but then in the zone it has like a 422, right? If you did, which you don't, right? So that's good. But if you did have all 3 contests selected at the same time, right? Well, the ROI disparity here is going to basically cause you to play lineups that like might not be optimized for the single entry here, because the ROI from the zone is like inflating how good that lineup is, even if it's not good for the single entry, but is good for the zone. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to use direct fill, what I would recommend, order of operations, I would do is, it's like, say I'm at like 1 unique, right? Like basically just like starting fresh, right? Okay, so I would set up my ROI filter. I would be at 1 unique, right? And then I would uncheck all the contests, check 1 only. Let this update. So it's resorting the lineups, and it's also refiltering them. So it's applying the filter to only this contest. So it's saying, hey, what lineups are negative ROI in this contest only? Moving those to the trash. That's why it's 1205 here. I think it was like 11 something before. And then it's resorting based on solely that contest. Then you find your 2 lineups. I would save them. And then once you save them, I would go back to this drop down, go to the next contest. It's going to resort the lineups. That's what the processing is doing. It's going to refilter the lineups as well, right? So before it was like 1200. Now it's like 1095, right? So different lineups, more or less, are being positive ROI for certain contests. So then, okay, great. Like now we're doing the ROIs for only this contest, and we're filtering out the negatives. And then I'm going to find my 5 lineups I want to play. Again, like the uniques were fine. That was like no problem, right? So, okay, you apply your uniques, you save, and then you go to the 3rd contest. So kind of rinse and repeat, okay? You can do this way, where you kind of get to see the lineups first, you get to see the exposures, all that, or this process that we're kind of and when you're in autofill, what we're doing when you click save, right? And just some notes on autofill. If you're going to use unique rank, which I would definitely recommend in this situation, I would recommend sorting by prize pool probably, or if you want to sort by like entry fee, that's fine. But basically what unique rank does, right, is every time you use a lineup, it will not allow the lineup to be used again. It's going to give you unique lineups where each lineup is only used once. So you probably want to sort by, price pool is typically correlated to like highest price to first, or if you care more about like the entry fee, I understand that as well. So you could also manually do it with this drag and drop function over here on the left. It'll like allow you to reorder the columns, the contest, however you want. So if one of these isn't getting it done for you, you could do that. Seems fine. You can also right click on your headers here, and like maybe you want to like actually go and add top prize, right? And I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go by top prize or something like that, right? And then you can just add that. So there's a number of different things you could do here. You got to figure out which one works for you. So let's say I do top prize, right? Okay, so what autofill does is it does that same exact thing, but it does a lot faster. So it unchecks the contest, checks the top one, resorts them, refilters it, saves the lineups, goes to the next until it's done. And, when we were doing it manually, you can kind of see how long it would take, like going back and forth. You could also set your uniques here, right? Just you could set them all at once with the gear icon. Say I want to set it to 4. It'll apply 4 to all the contests. It will ignore the uniques for the single entry because it doesn't matter. And then I click save, and this will take a grand total of like 5 seconds, and it did exactly what we did over there. So difference here with autofill, right? You save first, and then you view the exposures. With direct fill, you get to see the exposures before they go into your contest. So there's one small difference there. So just keep that in mind when using the two, when deciding. Autofill could be a lot faster. If, like you said earlier, you're in a time crunch, maybe you like to see it up front. Okay, you use direct. Maybe if you're in a time crunch, you use auto, right? Kind of got to decide which one will work best for you there. But I think some combination of that should help a bunch. Big J said, only been a member here for a few weeks, so still a rookie. Well, I'm super glad we're doing this review. I really hope it helps you out and helps you figure out, what to use. Maybe it saves you a bunch of time too in the process and helps you get better lineups. So that is all I really want to cover here. I think that, sometimes it just like a couple small tweaks can go like a super long way. So try those out. Let me know how they go, and we can always circle back and review your lineups even next week. So good luck with that. But other than that, I don't think you need to change too much right now. All right. Sweet. Big J said, you're a man, Andrew. Thanks, bro. Happy to help. All right, cool. So that was our first review of the day. And second review is going to be Junk Dog. We're going to be reviewing some MLB action first time this year. So this will be exciting. All right. And let me get Junk Dog up on the screen. One sec. Almost there. All right. All right, cool. We're good. All right, going to get Saberson back up now. All right, you guys should see Saber again. I'll let this load real quick. Cool. So got the build up. I'm going to go to the contest tab as always. All right, so what do we see? Contest selection looks really good. Look at this. All low stakes, single entries, 20 maxes, like very well balanced set of contests to choose from here, right? So really like the selection. Let's go. We're going to go with the highest price pool 20 max, which is the quarter jukebox. And we'll let the contest load. All right, cool. Contest loaded. Let's go over to users. 20 lineups here. 20. Sort by sim ROI. All right, so highest sim ROIs are like maybe you could say somewhere around like 10%. Junk Dog here has a 1.29% sim ROI, which seems fine. This doesn't seem like the highest edge contest. I don't know what the MLB lobby looks like too much here as far as like edge goes, but some room for improvement, right? Not a terrible set of lineups by any means. Now, and MLB is a little bit interesting, right? Because the correlation aspect of it, makes sim average score a little bit less relevant. So we kind of have to look at it like from a little bit different perspective, and kind of similar like to the way we look at like NHL here. So I don't put as much weight on like, oh yeah, your sim average score is like is too low. It's a little low, maybe. I mean, we see like some 100s, 102s, 101s, but it kind of comes down to like lineup construction a little bit. So the way I recommend studying MLB is going to be kind of different from like the ways we study NBA and stuff. What I like to do, right, is, okay, let's go look at your 20 lineups. And we're going to go to projections. And I'll kind of split this up a couple different ways. So where's your exposure? All right, we'll bring your exposure over. So let's say, okay, let's look at highest owned pitchers and how did you handle them, right? Okay, pretty even leverage on Skeens, little low on Kikuchi, which seems like it worked out fine. But overall, like leverages seem pretty flat, right? We're sorting by highest owned pitchers. No huge stands, kind of a well-balanced approach here. Oh, we even have the leverage column. Cool. So we can even see where like the leverage is coming from. And it looks like they, I mean, if you guys built with Sabersim yesterday, like it was feeding you Hunter Green. It was feeding me Hunter Green. And it looks like he had like a decent day, like 3 points over his projection. Seems like fine. Too bad it, too bad we didn't get more Mackenzie Gore, or they actually got like a decent amount here, right? 20% Mackenzie Gore at 3% owned is kind of nice. So if we sort by leverage, their highest leverages were Hunter Green, Mackenzie Gore, Eovaldi. It looks like pitchers kind of crushed here, right? So this is good, right? They got some good pitchers here, so that's great. But either way, kind of just trying to see how you handled pitchers. Almost looks like took some shots on like some lower owned guys and like those kind of worked out, right? So that's great. I like to look at batters too. So, okay, highest owned batters. Looks like they faded some of these Angels. Looks like they got to some Cleveland, some Kansas City. This was like a super popular spot because of the weather. Interesting. So see, I think that there might be like a takeaway here, at least like a small one. What was this? The quarter jukebox. So you could change your ownership, right? Let's say we go look at like low stakes 20 max. So if you guys checked the weather report yesterday, like I did, you noticed that Kansas City was like one of the best hitting spots of the day, like solid hitting weather. I think people read the Kevin Roth dashboard and I think they just kind of like jam like the best hitting spot. So like Witt Jr. 10% comes in at 22. Lane Thomas 6% comes in at 17. Jose Ramirez 11% comes in at like 16. And then we see like a couple other Kansas City batters. Salvi's like not too bad, 8 versus like 12, and then India 6 versus 12. So that's like double. I think there's like maybe like some game theory here going on. I think it has less to do with the projections and more to do with just like the information that a lot of people are looking at. That's saying like, hey, this is a good hitting spot. And like there was no other anything on like the dashboard that said like, oh, there's like some other good hitting spots as well. So this one like kind of stood out, right? Now I talked about like, I mostly used the dashboard when I was doing my build yesterday, more for like risk management for like pitchers and stuff like that. I let kind of the model take into account the weather. I like props indirectly take into account the weather. and like markets moving with like game totals and stuff. I think that, maybe like you could, what I would probably do, right, is if you see something like this, it would probably be a good opportunity to try to use a custom field if you're on Ultimate and like boost ownership projections for like this like one spot that's like standing out, right? And then you just get like a kind of like a more accurate look of like what your contest sims would be like, a little bit more accurate. Or if you're on like starter, right, then I would just increase their projection because adjusted ownership is a part of Saber score. And if you are bumping up their ownership, and even if it's directionally correct, doesn't have to be perfect, right? If we bump WIT from 10 to 15%, okay, well, that's still closer to 22. It is still a more accurate input than we previously had. That will help your Saber score formula be more accurate, and it will help SaberSim determine what are now the best lineups to play. So I think that there's a little bit of game theory here going on with like some of these Kansas City, Cleveland guys getting high ownership yesterday. And I would probably just keep my eye out for it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let's kind of watch this and let's kind of see how this unfolds. Going into more slates here, right? And kind of just track it and see if that's true, right? If it's true, maybe try and do something about it. So interesting stuff there. And then we could also like look at like what teams they stacked. So they got to like a lot of Atlanta as well, which like I was getting to yesterday on the show, and like San Francisco and stuff. So what I like to do here, right, is like, okay, let's look at, how you handled the pitchers, how you handled the batters, what teams you stacked. You can either like write these down on like a piece of paper, or you can like screenshot them, right? Which like I would just do this. And then I have that like here, right? So hold on, let's move this around. And then I would go and like look at like the higher ROI players. Still sorting sim ROI. Okay, so then we go and we look at Holman here, right? Look at them, magnifying glass, and then we basically go and see like, okay, well, how did they handle things versus like how did I, right? And then it's like, okay, how do our stacks line up? They were super concentrated on the Angels, just like jamming the highest team total. And then it's like, okay, how do these teams line up? Okay, they have some Cleveland, San Francisco as well. But I mostly faded the Angels, and they played a lot of them. Okay. What do their stacks look like, right? So not only did they a couple of smaller stacks, like one off 2 stack, 1 off 3 stack, but mostly 5 stacks. You can see what kind of stacks they're playing, right? Hey, 17 out of their 20 lineups were a 5 stack, right? What did I do, right? You go back and you look at your stack exposure. So basically just like studying what winning lineups or good lineups in your contest look like, and comparing those to like the decisions you made. Like, okay, how did they handle the pitchers, right? Oh, like they got way over on Paul Skeens, and kind of like pretty where you can see like how they handled stuff, right? I would do this for a couple different people, right? So you could pick somebody in your contest. You could pick a couple people in your contest. I would also look at contests you didn't play, right? So like go to the contest tab and then go and look at, the large field 150 max. And when you get here, let's close this one. Go over to users and look at the best 150 maxers. So sort by 150, sort by sim ROI, right? And Shady is, known person in the Saber Sim community, very, very good, multiple Millie Maker wins. And you can look at what they did, right? Like, okay, hey, I'm going to go study Shady and see how his lineups differ from mine, or what decisions he made, right? Look at a couple of these guys. So these players, that are maxing this out, like really big bankrolls, probably longtime winners, good at the sport. And, that's why they're doing it, right? So this is like how I would be studying MLB and trying to get better. But aside from that, let's go into your build. So it definitely differs from like NBA and stuff, but that's okay, right? All right, so what do we see? Default min-max salary, no filters, no rules. On the all tab, no min or max exposures, nothing in batters, a little bit in pitchers, which is like fine, managing some risk here to some pitchers, I think is okay. Unchecking certain stack types seems fine. I don't mind doing it. I think it's like a little weird personally to like leave 3-2 checked but uncheck 3-2-2. I would be curious to like hear somebody's reasoning for that, or like checking a 2-2-2 but not a 2-2-2-2. Like why the difference there? And there could be like a good reason for that, but me personally, I would leave them checked. If you're okay with a 2-stack, if you're okay with 3 2-stacks, like I'd be okay with 4 2-stacks, but there could be some thought there that I'm not aware of, so that's fine. Most of your lineups are bigger anyways, a lot of 5-stacks, 4s, and then you didn't even play these, but they're allowed basically. So didn't play less than a 4-stack, which seems fine. Maybe even like play less 4-stacks, like according to like kind of what we saw, right? With like that one user, they had a very small number of their lineups be 4-stacks. And this isn't that bad. I mean, it's still like 4, 7, 12, 18 out of like 86. I think that's like more than 85. I think that's the other person played like 85%, 5 stacks or greater. So food for thought, right? Getting kind of need a couple more opinions to like make a definitive answer, but something to consider, right? We saw a difference. We're going to explore that, right? It's kind of what you want to do. All right. Nothing, no min or max in teams. So that all looks good. Let's go over to lineups. So used autofill, 5 uniques, unique rank, target ROI, some ownership filter, ownership less than X seems fine. And then an ROI greater than 0 filter also seems fine. It looks like they sorted by fee, which is totally cool, right? 3. There's nothing really here that I disagree with strongly at all. So I think that you're going to have to spend some time doing what we were talking about in the in flashback and just like learning from better players. Something I've done in the past, right? Like I used to religiously like study like petty theft and like Utica in like NBA, and just like every night, and like sometimes you like work backwards a little bit, like, oh, I'm starting to see what they're seeing, and then you learn things, right? So that's what I would do here. But overall, I don't see any like major mistakes or anything occurring, which is like really good. I think that your process is totally fine. And I think you can just learn from other players and, take a little bit model, mimic, master approach and help your own process that way. So try that out. Let me know how it goes. But that was our second review. Reminder for anybody watching, you guys want me to do this for you. We do this show. We do this show once a week. We do it at 5 p.m. Eastern. There are 2 ways to sign up: email or office hours channel in Discord. Our email is support@sabersim.com. Let me know the date, sport, site, and slate you want me to review. Just like, hey, I want to sign up for the build review show. Can you look at my MLB builds from 327 for the DK main slate? And then I'll be able to roll with it from there. So that's how you get signed up. Appreciate you guys tuning in. No office hours tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to do office hours on Saturday like we usually do, but I will be back on Monday. So I will see you all then. Until then, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.